So we've talked about mystery and fantasy in sort of general term, but obviously there are different kinds of fantasy worlds. You have second world fantasy like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. You have alternate Earth fantasy. You have secret world fantasy like urban fantasy, for example. How do these different kinds of worlds change the challenges of writing mysteries? Like how does that affect the way that we as mystery writers, RPGs or prose writers kind of affect the mystery structure?
So the mystery structure remains the same
Mm,
because, again, one of the things that I think we'll get into later will be you need the balance of fantasy and mystery. All that the world setting does is give you alternatives to the types of things that can be a
mm,
mystery. It
yeah.
gives alternatives to the way that you seek clues. Maybe you are scrying into a place and your spell fails, and so you have to go and actually break in, but then there's magical barriers on it or stuff like that, as opposed to you go and you talk to somebody. If you're doing urban fantasy, you go and you talk to somebody and they give you two truths and a lie. So then you have to go and investigate and figure out which is the truth, which are the lie, and then you can go back and confront them, only to find out that that lie was to protect somebody else, and so on. So I don't think it affects the challenges. I think it presents different opportunities for what you
Mm,
include in your mystery, how you go ahead and solve your mystery, how you investigate your mystery, but the bones of mystery are still there, are still the same.
what about dealing with things like very high magic or mobile phones? Those are kind of the two things that I think scare a lot of us. We're like, either anyone can call anyone and figure out anything, or with very high magic, you get things like mind, like especially in Dungeons and Dragons, you get mind reading spells. You get,
Right.
all of these, like you can see people's alignment, that kind of thing. So that I feel like it can be a big challenge for writing mystery.
Exactly. That could be a challenge. However, that just presents opportunities. I'm sorry. I just get
Oh, I
inspired
love it.
by that sort of challenge. One of the things about cozy mystery and cozy paranormal mystery that I love is that you have limited resources. Cozy mystery
Mm,
and and cozy paranormal mystery take place in small towns because you don't have the big police department that you're working with. You don't have a forensic lab that rolls in and is able to detect everything. And so that constraint is part of the fun of figuring out,
mm,
how do I work around this? Sure, I could read the alignment of the evil person. That might not be the mystery. I might know that that is the person who did it from day one. How do I stop them? How do I bring them to
mm.
light? How do I, with all of their, royal connections, they're untouchable. How do I break through that? And so it's not so, and so sometimes with fantasy mystery and also with cozy mystery, it is not figuring out who done it, but it's figuring out who done it and how do I bring them to justice.
Mm, I love that. Drunken Panda adds, "Oh yes, I read the mind of a crazy person who accidentally looked at an elder evil."
Yes.
Yes, bad things sometimes happen when you read people's minds. That is also a very interesting way to kind of bring in complications,
Yes.
essentially. And I think that's one of the things we're really talking about is essentially it's something I call the triangle of power, essentially, where you have the ability, but then the ability has a cost and it also has a limitation.
Yep.
Those costs and limitations can be applied as complications, essentially. So,
Right.
like, you don't have the power to keep reading somebody's mind, or they have somehow resistance, or they're wearing a tinfoil hat, or you do read their mind, but what you get is very unclear and could mean one or the other thing. Like
Right.
that, this is essentially what you're saying is like make it more complicated.
Yes. Make it more complicated. Make it harder on your characters. Torture those people. Yes. The reason I'm not an axe murderess is because I have characters that I can torture.
That's going in the TikTok quote.
Yes. Yes. And so I enjoy making those characters go through those hoops because that then gives me the opportunity as a discovery writer to figure out the really cool stuff that I'm going to do next. You know,
Yeah.
so this spell doesn't work, that spell doesn't work. Guess what? We're going to have a whole scene for how we build these 3 spells together in order to finally make it work. And we learn that that's not the bad guy.
Mm.
And so, what are we going to do now?
I love that. I absolutely adore that. That kind of touches on this next question, which is how do you keep secrets from your audience and from characters when magic gets involved?
If you're doing something like Shadowrun, you have telepathy, you have the psionics and things like that. But you also have gods, right?
Mm.
And so that's a really good way of making sure that, your audience and characters don't know what's going on, is because you've got gods there. And they're you I'm sorry, maybe you can read the mind of Loki, but you don't want to. You
Oh,
just
yeah.
Yeah, you just don't want to. There is not enough brain bleach for that sort of thing. You you also have anti-magic spells. You also have characters that are stronger than you. And again, you might be targeting all your magic at the wrong person. They might be out of spell range. There's all kinds of ways that you can work that sort of thing out. Mystery is all about information flow.
Yeah.
And how do you give the audience, your readers, enough information to keep them involved while at the same time keeping them in the dark? And there
Yeah.
are lots of ways to do that. One of the easiest ways to do that is put the information that they get in a list. Make a
Yeah.
really long ass paragraph with 14 things that they learn from touching that particular object, and the thing that they need is like right in the middle.
I will just highlight this. This is something called the recency primacy effect, where if you put something at the beginning or at the end of a paragraph, readers will glom onto it. If you hide something in the middle of a list, you have played fair. You have told your readers and players that this is there, but you've slightly hidden it in the list. And the list can be 3 things, but the list can also be, to Leah's point, 14 things. And you can overwhelm them so much with information that while you are playing the game fair, you are using that as a tactic.